This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone, and you can find me and anything you want to know about me or how to contact me or what I'm doing or where else you can find me, all that other good stuff at hikingbob.com. My social media is on there. My photography website is on there. My columns at the Colorado Springs Independent on there. The other podcasts we do. All of that is at hikingbob.com. So just check that out. Also, there's a link there where you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter. And also, you can send me a message if you have a topic you want to have discussed, or if you have a comment to make, or you have a guest suggestion. We're always looking for good guest suggestions. You can also send me a message there. We do get people who send us emails, and 99.99% of them are very nice, so we appreciate that too. As you heard, with me today is Wild Westendorf.
Hey everyone, Wild Westendorf here, and you can find all my stuff on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf, and my website, wildwestendorf.com.
Cool. Kevin, we have an event coming up this weekend in Colorado Springs, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people. It is the What If Festival of Innovation and Imagination. This is downtown Colorado Springs. Saturday, September 10th from 10 to 4 p.m. There's all kinds of things going on there, but one of the things I wanted to bring everybody's attention to is this podcast conglomerate that we're part of here, Studio 809 Podcast, will be there with
cool.
Peak Radar and the Cultural Office of Pikes Peak, of the Pikes Peak region. Copper, it's called Copper. We'll be down there, and we're going to be at the south end of the Plaza of the Rockies by the Pioneers Museum. So stop in, say hi. I'm going to be there in the morning setting up. I'm not sure how late I'll stay, but if I'm there, say hi. But in any case, stop by and say hi. We've added some new podcasts, especially those from the Independent, where I also do some writing for them, do the column on outdoor recreation. So they now have a podcast that is on Studio 809, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So, and I'm not sure who all is going to be there. There's kind of an open invitation for the other podcasters to show up. At the very least, Dave Gardner, who's our mentor, leader, guider of the right direction, I guess. And I know that grammatically speaking, none of that was good. We'll be there. So stop by, say hi. And, if you've got an idea for a podcast, that's something that we're not already doing, pitch it to Dave, see what he says. You also have a chance, I think, to maybe do a trial podcast. We'll have some recording equipment there, all that kind of good stuff. So in any case, this Saturday, September 10th, from 10 to 4 p.m., downtown Colorado Springs, pretty much on Tejon Street, I believe, is where this is going to be. So stop in and check it out. Check out all the stuff going on there. Check out the Pioneers Museum. One of the I think, Kevin, you'll agree with me, one of the gems of our city is the Pioneers Museum.
Absolutely.
That it's such a cool historical place. It's free. It's, it was the original, I don't know the original, but one of the oldest, it definitely wasn't the original, but it was definitely an old county courthouse. The new one's across the street. And the county was going to tear it down back in the 70s, and the city snatched it up and made it into a beautiful museum. There's that courtroom on the second floor. I don't know if you've been up there, that courtroom that's still restored exactly what it was. It's beautiful. They use it for movies and stuff. It is gorgeous. So
yeah, a friend of mine got married in the courthouse up there.
I thought you got to say convicted. Let's not say that. So check this out on Saturday and pay us a visit. Like I said, I'll be there early and may hang around for a little bit. So stop in and say hi if you're down that way this weekend. Kevin, we are experiencing some warmer than normal weather.
Yep.
Welcome to the world of climate change. And I know people are going to roll their eyes and stuff like that, but you just, like I've mentioned before, I'll be happy to debate with you what causes climate change, whether it's man-made or whether it's the natural cycle of things, but I don't think there's any room to debate that things are changing. And for whatever reason, they're changing. So we're having a pretty warm September. We're recording this the day before it goes out. So we recorded this on Tuesday. And it's been in the 90s today, and it's been hot. This Labor Day weekend was very hot.
Very, very hot, yeah.
Very hot. And pretty much, and I've done some Labor Days around here where it was just downright chilly. So today was just this past Labor Day was the opposite end of the spectrum. So we're experiencing warmer weather. There's no secret. Everybody is. The desert Southwest has been just broiling. You were You passed through Death Valley when you went to Mount Whitney, and it was, if I remember correctly, you told me it was just ungodly hot.
Oh, it was awful. And there was a little bit of a breeze, but it was like a burning wind.
Yeah.
It was, oh, no.
It's like a burning wind, like putting a fan in front of your oven that's on. It's still hot. Yeah. So it's still warm out there. And the reason why I bring this up is the desert is experiencing outrageously high temperatures. They are still issuing excessive heat warnings in Phoenix. The Grand Canyon today issued one because it hit 114 degrees in the Grand Canyon today, which is pretty hot and definitely hot for the beginning of September. So there was an unfortunate incident that happened, and the only reason why I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons. A, it's still hot out there. It's still hot here, and everybody needs to pay attention that even though the calendar says September and is the meteorological fall, whatever that means. I thought fall didn't come for another couple of weeks, but now we have this meteorological fall. It is still hot out there. You need to really pay attention to the environment when you're going out hiking. This may not actually be time for you to ditch the shorts, or maybe it is. Maybe you like wearing longer pants to keep the heat off of you. Definitely not the time to skimp on carrying enough water and hydration and paying attention to shade. But there was an incident on a trail in the north part of Phoenix, on a trail that I did back in April.
Okay.
And it's the Spur Cross Trail. And it was, when I hiked it, it was 12 miles and I wasn't even doing the whole thing. I started at Spur Cross Ranch, which is a county park, and then ended up at Cave Creek Regional Park, another park. And that hike was 11.82 miles. I did it in April 11th. I went back and looked at my record. It was a long day. The temperature that day was 84 degrees. That they have on record. Now, it could have been hotter or warmer or cooler than that by a few degrees where I was. But anyway, the official recorded high temperature was 84 degrees that day. It took me 4 hours and 6 minutes of moving time to do the hike. So, stopping for, a bathroom break, to drink some water, to have lunch. I brought food with me, obviously. To take pictures. I don't go hiking without taking 6 million pictures. Pull out the map, make sure I'm on the right track, I know where I'm going, all that kind of stuff. So probably was out there for about 5 hours over the course of this thing. It was 84 degrees. And I will tell you, for that entire length of that trail, for almost 12 miles of trail, there was not a lick of shit. Oh, yeah, I had a rattlesnake encounter. Like the last 2 miles of that, I almost stepped on a rattlesnake that was hidden in the shade of a bush on the trail, not even off the trail, but on the trail. I almost stepped on this rattlesnake. So it was an exciting day. And it was warm. I mean, by the time I got done, I drank all the water I brought, which was several liters, and I felt fine. I mean, I wasn't like I was dying or anything like that, but you obviously knew that it was a hot day out there. So over this weekend, 6 people decided, and it was 109 degrees down there this weekend. So 25 degrees warmer than when I did it in April. These 6 people decide they're going to hike the same trail. Now, if you're going to get ahead of me a little bit here, you're on the right track when you're going to say that this does not end well. And it doesn't. One of the people, a 20-year-old, died. Many of the others had to be treated for heat stroke, dehydration. They did not have enough water with them. The pictures I've seen, nobody's wearing a hat. Just even wearing a hat.
Ooh.
And I wear, I wear that big broad rim Tilly hat because I just love them, and they give you. Nothing gives me a headache worse than in the bright sun. That sun just beating on my forehead. It feels like a drill bit going through my forehead. So this does not end well, and it's unfortunate, and there was really no reason for it. And I know some of the locals down there go hiking, and they will tell you that when you pull up at a parking lot at 11 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody there because it's too hot. That's a hint. When you go out on the trails, if you go into your local park, you're going to do 1 or 2 mile hike. You can probably get by with that with no problem if it's a hot day. You don't see any animals. Well, you know why? Because it's too hot. So what bothers me the most, this did not have to happen.
Exactly.
In the Phoenix City parks, they actually shut the parks down. They close the parks when it gets too hot. You cannot go in the parks. And I don't want to say it's the wrong way. It's not so much that they care. They do care. It's not so much for the protection of the hikers. It's the protection of the firefighters and the EMS people and the police department who have to go out after people who are out there where it's too darn hot. That's why it's illegal to take your dog out into a park in Phoenix when it's over 100 degrees. In Scottsdale, if it's over 90, you're not allowed to have your dog out there. You'll get a ticket for that. Because,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
For my dog Cole here, his limit's about 80 to 85 because he's got 2 coats of thick black fur and he overheats really quickly. So why am I mentioning something that happened in the desert? Well, yeah, it was 20 degrees, 25 degrees hotter there, but we're in the 90s here. And we have a little bit of shade, but hot is still hot. Dry heat is still dry heat. In any case, the point is, oh no, here's the other thing too. I did a little research. So it was a 12-mile hike, just under 12 miles when I did it. It took me 4 hours moving time, probably more like 5 hours altogether to do this hike through the desert. And I was looking at what the recommendations for how much water you should carry. It would be almost, I don't want to say it would be impossible for you to carry enough water, but a gallon of water is around, 8.5 pounds.
Yeah.
You would need a couple of gallons of water. So we're talking 16 to 17 pounds of water to carry with you to get through a hike this long in 100-plus degree temperature. That is almost physically, I don't want to say it's physically impossible to carry. Obviously, it's not. People who backpack, that is a lot of water to carry with you. It would be difficult for you to carry enough water to drink safely on a hike of that length, that amount of time, in that kind of conditions. They should have never done it.
Yeah.
And again, you know, anybody who's going to say that we're not victim blaming here, the goal is to educate, but it gets a little distressing when, and I'm not the only person preaching this, the public officials all around the country, are telling people this is not the time to go out, and yet people still do it. How they miss the message, or how they ignore the message, or why they ignore the message is beyond me.
And I think a lot of people massively underestimate how much the heat just saps you of water, obviously, but energy, because you're sweating it all out. And I'll tell you, it is possible to carry that much water because I've done it, but I backpack and all that stuff. So I had the right gear to have a lot of weight on without it being like a strain on my back. Maybe unwisely, I have hiked when it's almost that hot in Utah, but I brought 3 gallons of water, plus a few of those tablets that I put in one thing of water. Just get the
electrolytes.
Yes. Thank you. And plus it's packed with a bunch of vitamins and other stuff. Right. And I get bored of water after a while too. Yeah. It's just like, I want some flavor. Also, it was a 6-mile hike, not an 11 or 12-mile hike. And I did it early in the morning when the expected high was supposed to be 107 according to the park ranger that I talked to. But I made sure the main thing was I brought enough water. And I had done this hike before, so I knew that there were several spots with a lot of shade. And so I just made sure to just stop in those spots to cool off, kind of relax, and let my phone cool down because it was hot enough that when I was trying to do videos on my phone, it was shut down.
Right. You get that high heat warning on there.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why I got a GoPro. So
yeah, there you go. So one of the things that I read, and this is it's from a website down in Phoenix, but this applies here. It applies anywhere there's going to be high heat. One of the things they said was drink your belly full of water before you even get out of the car.
Oh, yeah.
So start off with a lot of water. Carry as much water as you can. Now you carry 3 gallons of water, so you're carrying 20 some odd pounds of water. Yeah, you could carry that, but I guarantee it's not very comfortable.
And especially if you don't have the right type of backpack.
And what else are you carrying?
Yeah, your food and gear.
Right. Yeah, so there's not the only thing you're carrying. And I will guarantee you that most of the people that this kind of stuff happens to don't know to carry that much water.
Exactly.
They don't have the right backpack with the load lifters and things like that to take the weight off your shoulders. So they're not set up for it anyway. So for them, water's too heavy. I'm not going to carry that much water. How do you get rid of all that weight off your back? You drink it. The other thing is one of the things I read, and it seemed like very good advice, was you just need, if you're starting to get hot, you need 15 minutes in the shade drinking water to recover from dehydration. So if you're feeling hot, you can get in the shade. You can make your own shade. If you have a parka, or not a parka, a rain jacket or something like that, you can string between a couple of trees and you can get under the shade there or something like that and drink some water. You need about 15 minutes of that, and you can recover enough that you can continue on your hike. As I pointed out, though, the recovery from heat stroke could be weeks.
Weeks. Okay.
If you survive.
Yeah.
So let's not, because heat stroke is when your core temperature starts to get really high. Then your internal organs start to fail, and this is not a good thing. Again, we're not trying to scare anybody off from hiking in desert. I went out and I recorded a video of hiking when it was about 100 and something. I think it was about 102 when I was in a park down in Phoenix. And I did like a 4-mile hike. And I recorded on video, and I talked about how I felt. And I felt like crap when I got done.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It is hot. And remember, I did this hike 4 hours moving time. I guarantee you it was 100 some odd degrees. I would not have been going nearly that fast. So again, you're lengthening how much time you're outside, how much time the sun is beating on you, how much time the sun is reflecting off the ground and beating on you. None of this is good. So let's just be careful out there. We are going to have these high temperatures here for a while still. We are in this warming trend right now, and it's September. And Kevin, you and I have talked a lot about how September is not it's not like we flip the switch and September 1st comes around or Labor Day comes around, all of a sudden temperatures drop 30 degrees and we start wearing jackets. That's not the way it works here. And every year it seems like the warm weather gets a little longer into September. So just, if you're out there, be careful. In a month or two, Kevin are going to be telling you how to be careful with the cold.
Yeah.
All that's good. Our goal here is to educate. I'm not going to say anything about whatever happened to these folks out there, whatever decision making went into their thought process to try this hike. There is a thing called got to get it done-itis. I got to get this hike done. Well, you know what? You don't.
And the key thing is to keep in mind is to actively be aware of how much water you've got left. Because a good point I saw on the article about this was, as soon as you get halfway through your water supply, turn back. It doesn't matter how much further you've got left. I mean, if you're doing an 8-mile loop and you're on mile 7, then
finish
fine.
it.
Yeah, but if you're on a 12-mile hike and you're on mile 5 or 6 and you're halfway through your water, turn back.
When your water's half done, your hike is half done.
Yeah,
was the way I read it.
I like that.
And that's really good advice. And you see that, and it's not like this isn't posted when you go on the trails down there. This is posted all over the place. Every trailhead has signs about the warnings about danger, heat, and everything. We don't see that as much here because even if we get these 100-degree days, they don't last long. We don't have, we don't have it here where it's, still 90 degrees at 10 o'clock at night. That doesn't happen here.
And it cools down a lot the higher you go.
Right.
Up here, you tend to hike up, where the elevation of Phoenix and most of Arizona is a lot lower.
Right. I think my place at Phoenix is at 1,100 feet, as opposed to 6,300 where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And I was out shooting the Milky Way weekend before Labor Day.
Oh, you told me about this.
And it was cold. We were freezing our tails off out there. So it gets cold. So again, I know people are going to say, what's this got to do with us? It's in the desert. Well, we're having heat later in the season. You still need to be aware of the heat. Bring enough water that you are prepared for it. Go over, look up the 10 essentials and what you need. If you know they're going to be near water, then maybe you can carry a little less, but bring water purification with you. Never drink untreated water unless it's the absolute last life or death thing you can do.
Yeah.
Bring some water purification with you, whether it's a life straw, whether it's iodine tablets, whether you can bring something you can boil water in. I have the Camelback bottle with the UV light in the lid.
Oh, yeah.
That kills everything. There's a number of different ways to do it. But just be careful out there. I don't want to read. My biggest dread is I read one of these news reports and it turns out to be somebody I know. That would just kill me. I wouldn't want to see that happen. Recognize that anything can happen to anybody. There was an unfortunate accident on Capitol Peak over the weekend, and you and I, a couple of years ago, we had 9 deaths on Capitol Peak in a year, and it turned out that a lot of people were not prepared, not paying attention. They were going off on a side trail because hey, that looks like the shortcut. Well, if that was a good shortcut, that would be a marked trail.
Yeah.
And literally walking off a cliff. There was another accident there this week. This does not appear to be the same thing because they did do some work on that trail. And if you notice, since that time, things have calmed down. Capitol Peak is still a difficult 14er to climb. Yeah. It's one of the more difficult ones. And you and I mentioned that there's 2 classes of people that these things happen to. People who are unprepared, uneducated, I don't mean that in a bad way. They just don't take the time to talk to somebody who knows or to do some research. And they get themselves into a pickle. And then sometimes, if we've talked about, you could be the best prepared person and stuff happens. You could twist an ankle.
Yep.
Anything can happen. With this latest incident on Capitol Peak, from what I've read, this was a mountain climber. And unfortunately, she went to reach for a rock that was going to hoist her up, and the rock gave way.
And I've got experience with that, where a rock or boulder feels solid when I'm trying to get footing on it. Then once I put my full weight on it, then it moves or shifts and stuff. So I can totally see this. Like, she grabbed it, it felt sturdy, then puts her body weight on it, and it breaks off.
Right.
Like,
So anything can happen to anybody. You could be hiking on a trail and a rock, like you said, a rock rolls out from under you. You could end up, breaking your ankle, twisting your ankle, and not able to move. Something like that can happen to anybody. We all get that. Anything can happen to anybody. It's when things happen to people who obviously not taking the time or the effort to adequately prepare themselves or have the right equipment that really is kind of the distressing part of this.
Yeah.
Let's be careful out there, folks. I really don't want to read about anybody I know. I mean, it's distressing enough when it's people I don't know. It'd be even more distressing when it's somebody I know that I read about that might have gotten hurt or something worse. And I just don't want to see that happen. This is fun and games for us. Let's not lose sight of it. This is just fun and games. We don't have to do it. We could. There's no honor in being the subject of a rescue call that especially could have been avoided. It's go back another day. Now, you may be in a spot where that's not an easy thing to do. You may be traveling. Well, you know what? That's okay. Come home alive and tell everybody about how close you came to doing it, but you had to stop because it didn't look good. Nobody's going to complain. It's going to be just fine.
And the deserts and the mountains and canyons are going to be there way longer than you. So you'll have plenty of time to go back, I'm sure.
They've only been there 100 million years.
Yeah.
Speaking of mountains and stuff like that, we've talked a couple weeks ago about this article in the Colorado Sun about private ownership of 14ers. We talked about it at length here. The Colorado Sun did print a guest editorial that I wrote about the same topic.
Okay.
On Sunday, and that's available. You can go to my Facebook page and find it there. It was in the latest newsletter, so you can find that on the website. And I'll put a link into it. But basically said much of the same thing. One of the issues there that was raised was if you go skiing in Colorado and you ski yourself into a tree, you can't sue the ski operator.
Yeah.
If you go to a baseball game, and you were talking about going to a baseball game just recently, and you get hit by a foul ball, you can't sue the baseball team. And it's basically as if that, stuff happens. That law that covers these kind of outdoor sports does not cover a landowner who allows people to hike on their land, which has been one of the concerns about private landowners. And a lot of that goes back to, and we discussed this about a year ago, this lawsuit that happened at the Air Force Academy because a cyclist hit a pothole, crashed, got pretty seriously injured. But the nuance to that, as we talked about at that time, was this was not 14,000 feet up on a peak where nobody could get to it. This was in the Air Force Academy proper. And the Air Force Academy had been told about this pothole for a couple of weeks and just didn't do anything about it. Slightly different circumstances. And I don't think too many people would equate that to something happening 14,000 feet up. And A, who's going to know about it? And B, how fast can somebody get up there to fix it? Still, that has some private landowners concerned. So do we need to change that law to allow it for private landowners who legally allow people to hike on their land? I think we should. I think that by all means, we should indemnify those private landowners who are willing to let people up there. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. The rest of it about taking their land away from them, absolutely not on.
Oh, yeah. No.
not on the same page with that. That's our safety tips for today.
Yep.
Just be careful out there, folks. It's going to be warm for a little while still. And then we're going to have that nice moderate temperature probably into late October. Then it'll start to get chilly, and then, you'll have to start layering up. And, we won't get snow till probably February at the rate we're going. It's just how long it takes for us to get snow. But just always remember, too, the other thing around Colorado, especially Colorado Springs, is whatever happens, the day before, the day after, Halloween is always bitter cold in Colorado Springs.
Oh, yeah. Last year, the entire month of October was really nice. I mean, it was in the 70s and 80s. It was great. And two of my friends flew out here from New Jersey to get married at the Royal Gorge.
Whoops.
On Halloween.
Well, that's not a positive sign, but okay.
And as we approached that day, we saw in the forecast like sunny, really cold. Like it was like a 30 or 40 degree drop in temps. It was going to be overcast and raining. So we drove down to the Royal Gorge, being like maybe the weather would be a little bit better in Canyon City in terms, because it was very foggy too. Nope, couldn't see anything. So they got married to a nice looking tree. And, that could have been a tree at Palmer Park or at a city park of some kind, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah. We always have that cold day on Halloween. I don't know what it is. It used to be, 30 years ago when I moved here, you'd actually get a pretty good snowstorm on Halloween.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened in a long time, but it'll get cold on Halloween. Trust me on this. Whatever it is, whatever weird climatological anomaly happens, and it gets cold here. Halloween's going to be cold. It'll probably be nice the next day and nice the day before, like you said, but that day is going to be miserable. The odds are for that. So just just keep an eye out. Things are going to stay warm for a while, and it's easy for you to think, well, it's September, it's October. How hot could it be? The answer is hot still. Kevin, I did a fun hike over the weekend.
Okay.
And this will be the column of hopefully my next column in the Independent, on the 4-pond loop in Mueller State Park. It's a pretty nice hike. Now, it's about 6 miles long, give or take. And the problem with this hike is you can go clockwise or counterclockwise. I would recommend going clockwise. But whichever way you go, there's a whole boatload of downhill, which, of course, you know what that means. There's a whole lot of uphill at the other end.
Yeah.
And I figured out that going clockwise, the downhill is longer than the uphill when you hit the bottom and you come back up. Because at the bottom of this trail is basically at one of the ponds. So you go down, you pass a pond, go down, hit another pond. Then from there it's up, hit a pond, up, hit another pond, then up, and you get back. So whichever way you go, there's a bunch of downhill, which means there's a bunch of uphill. So I'm going to publish that one. But it's a beautiful hike. And actually one of the ponds, and I had been alerted to this, had beavers in it. And
that's so cool.
I saw two of them the day I was there, and they were a little wary, of course they are. But when I was at this pond for a while, didn't see them. Then also I see these two heads poking up, and they're swimming across the pond. So I back up into the shade of a tree, so I'm not really visible. But it's a spot where the bank of the creek, the pond was pretty close. I had my camera with me, my regular camera. Didn't have a big telephoto lens, but as the beavers got, moving around, they paid less and less attention to me. They came pretty close. I got some pretty decent pictures. And then I also shot some video, and one of them actually turned its tail toward it and slapped the water. I see you up there, and you're not fooling anybody, which, obviously he wasn't. But they obviously knew I also wasn't a threat. I mean, I'm up in the shade. I'm not near the water. I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool. So it's pretty neat to see. In the summer, these are really nice hikes because there's a lot of wildflowers. And in the fall, there's big stands of aspens.
Yes,
as you go through there. So this will be a nice hike to do in about another month. Would be a nice hike to do down there. Speaking of fall colors, there's a lot of fall color predictions going on there. And of course, I'm already seeing on Facebook, I saw one leaf that turned red. Fall's here. No, that's not what that means. Fall's a ways off. Fall colors are ways off. Great Smoky Mountains, or I think it's smokymountains.net. I will have a link. And I did put a link in the in my last newsletter, but I'll put a link in the show notes. Has probably one of the most accurate fall colors prediction maps I've seen. And it's a map of the whole United States. It's color-coded with like 6 different colors, so there's a lot of nuances. And there's a slider bar at the bottom, and you move it to different dates, and it shows you the progression of the fall colors. And so you can tell when it's starting, when it's going to peak.
That's cool.
Past peak. It's really nice. My experience is it's fairly accurate. Of course, there's always variations. There's always things that can happen. But my experience is it's pretty accurate for when I'm planning on when I'm going to go take fall colors pictures and stuff like that. So that is out there. That coincides with a couple other things that I've read, that our fall colors here are going to be about a week to 10 days later than usual, is what the prediction is. And maybe the amount of time that we have fall colors is going to be a little wider than usual. We've had some years where the fall colors lasted a day and then just died.
Yeah.
We've had sometimes where they lasted 2 weeks, or a week or 2 weeks, and they've lasted a while. You've had plenty of time to go out there and see them and take pictures. So right now it looks pretty good. I will be teaching a fall colors photography class at the Garden of the Gods right after I get back from my next trip, and that will be, let me give you the date here, October 1st. I don't think there's a sign-up link available yet, but I will post that on my social media. If it's available when I post this, I'll post it in the show notes, and also be in my newsletter and all that kind of stuff. But I'll be doing a fall colors photography class on October 1st, and it's a nice little. The way I do it is about a 2-hour class. We spend an hour in a classroom, and I just go over equipment, and I have a brief PowerPoint, mostly just to show good shots and bad shots. Here's a picture I took, didn't come out so well. Why didn't it come out so well? What did I do wrong here and there? And then we go out into the field, and then we'll take pictures. And I'll be circulating around and just taking what we learned in the classroom and putting that into good use, actually with our cameras or cell phones, and taking pictures out there.
Cool.
So that'll be available. There's a slight charge for that. It gets split between me and the Garden of the Gods Foundation. And I hope everybody signs up. I think we have a limit of about 20 people.
Okay.
About as many as I can corral all at the same time. All the classes I've done there, they've been very well received. People love them. They have a good time. And they like that. There's just not going to be lectured at. We're going to go out and actually use their cameras. So if you want to do this, get familiar with your camera and then bring it with you and whatever lenses you have, and I'll show you which ones are the best to use. And we'll go out and have a good time and take some pictures.
Awesome.
And I may be doing something with Fox 21 on the news probably a couple days before that, where we'll also be doing some stuff on their morning news about fall colors photography. Kevin, what do you got going on? You got
I've gone to the What If Festival the last few years except for 2020, and it really is a great time. It's a lot of fun, but I won't be able to go to the one this year or this weekend because I will be hiking up Cresto Needle with my coworkers, actually.
Your coworkers not like you or what? I'm kidding.
Like, gonna find out if they secretly took out life insurance things on me or something, but it's a class 3 14er, which I've never done before. But one of my coworkers this is his favorite mountain to climb. And actually, him and his wife got married at the top, which I don't get that. I mean, I get married on top of a mountain, but 14er that's class 3, that's a whole nother level.
You can't see it, but I'm shaking my head at Kevin. What are they thinking?
So I'm glad to be doing a class 3 with someone who has a ton of experience, and I also agreed to do a work thing at the Switchbacks game on Saturday night. So I'm going to be very tired.
And out of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Cresto Needle, for those not familiar with it, we talked about Capitol Peak being one of the more difficult 14ers. Cresto Needle's in that same, it's a fairly difficult, and it's a long hike if I remember correctly. Yeah. It's not one of the shorter 14ers to do. It's a pretty long hike to get up there.
You've been to South Colony Lakes, right?
I have not been. I've been on the other side there to the like Willow Lake.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is on the other side. I think you can come up that way, I believe. No, you can do Challenger and Kit Carson from that side.
Yeah.
I've been in that area. I mean, I've looked at Cresto Needle. I've seen it.
Okay.
And I've been up on some of those lakes that are up there.
And because I've actually hiked up there before, but just to the lake. Yeah. Except I had to add a few miles to it because of the dirt road. Right. My car at the time was not, and my current car are not able to go up that road. My coworker who's leading the hike had to lift his Jeep, so it's great. We're going to shave a few miles off, but it's still a long hike. And then essentially the route to the top of the Needle is straight up. Yeah. So it's very steep, and there are parts where you do free climb it and such.
Yeah, that's the way the Forest Service does it. Instead of clearing the rocks out of the road, they just close the road. Yeah. You've got like a heavy duty. Because, it used to be able to, that trailhead for the Colony Lakes used to be, 3 or 4 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah, further up. So, I mean, it added a round trip hike 6 miles to the hike because you can only go so far with a car or like a little SUV like you have or my Jeep Cherokee or something like that. Yeah. It's not lifted and... not on 36-inch tires with a 9-inch lift kit or whatever the heck, people put on those things. Well, good luck. if Kevin's not here next week.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Kevin will be here. He'll be fine. He'll have great stories. You will tell us about this.
Cool. I will.
When we next have you on, which I think will be next week. I would love to hear what it's like up there. I'm sure the views are stunning.
Yeah, and the photos that I've seen, it looked like it. Plus, I haven't hiked a 14er in the Sangres yet, so I'm really excited about that too. And
for people not familiar with the different mountain ranges we're talking about, there's the Rocky Mountains, but of course there's the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, there's the Wet Mountains. The Sangre de Cristos are on the south end of the state, the south end of the Rockies, basically. They are younger mountains.
Yeah.
And the way you tell is by looking at the peaks. They're very sharp, pointed peaks. They haven't been around long enough. Of course, we're talking younger. It's a couple million years one way or the other. They haven't been worn down by wind and erosion to where they're more rounded. Like if you look at peaks to the north, you look at Pikes Peak, for example. Very broad.
Especially Pikes Peak, yeah.
Very broad. And it's not that far from Pikes Peak. As the crow flies, what's it, 50 miles?
Yeah.
As the crow flies. So these are younger mountains, very steep, like Kevin's talking about with, Cresto Needle. It's called Needle for a reason. It's very sharp and pointed. So these are newer mountains with very steep, angles to them, and that's one of the things that makes them more difficult. It's not like it's a nice rounded peak and we kind of switch back our way up.
Yeah.
It's like now you just kind of hand and foot up it. So I hope your friend's equipment is new and fresh, and the rope hasn't been used to tow a truck out of something.
Yeah.
It sounds like he knows what he's doing, and you obviously trust him enough to go on it. So
yeah, and he's one of those weirdos. I'm sorry, Roger, but that
these are on, right?
Yeah, that likes to do like 50-mile runs and stuff just cause.
What is wrong with this guy?
Right?
Actually, I should meet him. We probably have good conversations.
Oh, he's a fantastic guy.
Cool. Well, you should have a lot of fun. It should be, and like I said, as Kevin alluded to, there are a lot of lakes in that area too.
Oh yeah.
I've hiked to a number of them, not the Colony Lakes, but they're on my list. But Music Pass is near there with the Sand Creek Lakes. There's a number of lakes in there, and it's just this nice spiny mountain range. On one side, there's a valley between there and the Wet Mountains, and you can look right across the valley and see them. On the other side, on the west side, that is actually where Great Sand Dunes is.
Yep.
And the Music Pass is just south of there. So it's a beautiful spot. Then you have the San Luis Valley that goes across there, and that's a pretty broad valley in that area.
Oh, that's a huge valley, yeah.
And that's a high-altitude valley. It's one of in the winters, we know, Kevin, you look at the temperature, it is cold.
And windy.
In that valley. It'll be like maybe 30 degrees here, and it'll be like 20 below in that valley because it's so high and broad, and the wind just whips through there. So it's a pretty interesting place in that area. And then Sand Dunes is there, which is kind of an anomaly because the wind, I guess the sand that blows in from the Pacific ends up stuck against these 14ers, and we end up with this sand dunes in the middle of nowhere in Colorado.
Yeah, it's so weird.
How does that happen? Well, welcome to Mother Nature. Kevin, you got anything else? I think we've talked a lot about safety and stuff like that.
No, I just can't wait to sleep in next Sunday morning. So
yes, I think you should sleep in right through to Monday.
Yeah.
You may do that whether you want to or not. That's going to be a long day for you. I don't think we got anything else going on. We are arranging. Next week we'll be here. The week after that I will be away, but I think we're going to have a podcast queued up and ready to go. I'll be on my trip finally to the Great Bear Rainforest that's been on delay for a couple of years.
And I can't wait to hear that story.
It's going to be fun. Fingers crossed we see the spirit bears, which is what we're after. So I think I will have at least one podcast queued up with some guest interviews during that time, so we should have somebody on here. But otherwise, I may take that one other rare week off. But I don't think I have to. I think I'll have something queued up for everybody for that one. And I think with that, we'll just say goodbye.
We'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.